evening. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Holcomb from the 11 Alive Weather Impact Team, where we want to talk to you about this monster storm that is taking place right now in the Gulf of Mexico, and it is expected to maintain this near record strength until it gets close to landfall in the middle of the week here along the Florida coastline. This is Hurricane Milton, and from the 8 o'clock advisory that we just got in, we see maximum sustained winds at 180 miles an hour. The strongest hurricane on record as far as the wind speeds was Allen back in the early 80s here, with maximum sustained winds of 190 miles an hour. Also, this is near record strength as far as the pressure. The pressure right now is at about 897 millibars. The record lowest pressure is 882 millibars. So this is near record strength in the Gulf of Mexico. And this is just a powerful storm. You can see it's a Category 5. We'll zoom in a little bit tighter here. You can see that it's down into the southern parts of the Gulf near the Yucatan Peninsula as that Cat 5. And it's moving to the east at about 10 miles an hour. So you can see the center of that circulation right there, a very tight eye that we have. In fact, the eye is only about 4 miles wide. So that's a really tight concentric eye, and it is very strong as it's moving closer here to the Yucatan Peninsula, and it looks like it's going to kind of skirt the Yucatan and then move up toward the north and east. And as it does that, it will then threaten the Florida coast. We are expecting a landfall most likely here late on Wednesday. So here's the latest that we're watching. This is the 8 o'clock advisory. This is really the same track that we had from earlier tonight at 5 o'clock, but with the intermediate advisory that comes in at 8 o'clock, they mainly just update the winds and also the direction there as well as the pressure. So here's the track that as we're watching it, you see it kind of skirting the Yucatan Peninsula and then moving through the Gulf, most likely maintaining that Category 5 status through at least overnight Tuesday into early on Wednesday. Now, the thing with hurricanes is that when they are this strong, it's really hard for them to maintain that strength for a long time. It goes through an eye wall replacement, and sometimes that causes, over and over again, it'll have eye wall replacement there. And that sometimes gives fluctuations in the wind speed and even the pressure there as well. But as this gets closer to Florida, we expect it to encounter the potential for some wind shear that may make it weaken a little bit. Now, when I say weaken, I don't mean it's going to go away. I just mean it's not going to maintain that Category 5 status for a long time. And notice that by Wednesday afternoon, if this forecast verifies here, it could become a Category 4. And then at landfall, late Wednesday into early on Thursday, we have had some variations in that landfall time. It's actually being pushed back just a little bit. Earlier, we thought it was going to be Wednesday afternoon. Now it looks like it's going to be later on Wednesday or overnight into early on Thursday. And at that landfall, it may be a Category 3 hurricane with max winds at about 125 miles an hour. That is still a major hurricane, and this storm is going to cause some major impacts for really the entire Florida peninsula there, but especially the western coastline. I'm going to go over some of these advisories and warnings that we have here, but there you see in the red, that is where we have a hurricane warning in effect. We are expecting dangerous wind, a lot of rain, and life-threatening storm surge. In fact, the National Hurricane Center has actually upped the storm surge forecast for this system. Earlier it was saying a 12-foot storm surge, which is extreme already, but now they're saying the potential for up to 15-foot storm surge, which is really extreme with that. Now, once we get landfall, you see it crossing the Florida peninsula and then going out into the Atlantic as a Category 1 there on the east side. And then it diminishes going into late Thursday and into Friday, as well as on Saturday going over near the Bermuda area. Now, I want to point something else out here to you. You see the yellow here, and I'll go over this, I guess, a little bit more in just a moment. But I wanted to show you on this track, it is a counterclockwise flow, all right? So as this crosses over the peninsula of Florida, it will weaken just a little bit, but still maintaining hurricane strength when it goes back out into the Atlantic. But that counterclockwise flow here is still going to send some impacts to the Georgia as well as the South Carolina coast. Now, it's interesting, we don't expect a direct landfall on the Georgia coast, but there is a tropical storm watch in effect for the Georgia coast because on the north side of that system there, with that wraparound moisture and wraparound flow, it is going to be sending in some storm surge, it is going to be sending in some rain, and it's going to be sending in some wind there to the Georgia coast. So we need to watch this very closely. Here's a closer look at those advisories that we have. The red is where we have a hurricane warning. The blue is a tropical storm warning. And then on the east side of Florida, we have a hurricane watch here in the pink color. And then up in Georgia and into areas of South Carolina, that's where we have that tropical storm watch that's in effect. So there's a closer look at those warnings here. And really, the models have been consistent. Even though we've seen some changes there of the timing of the track, the models have been pretty consistent in bringing this in near Tampa. That's pretty much in the center of that hurricane warning. But notice there, as it moves across, it will be impacting many areas inland over toward Orlando, exiting over near Daytona Beach or south of Jacksonville, between Daytona and Jacksonville, the Space Coast region there. And then it'll move on out into the Atlantic. Here's that closer look at the tropical storm watch. Now again, we're talking about that counterclockwise flow. The center of the storm is going to be down here, but it's that counterclockwise flow that will bring in this Atlantic moisture and rain on the top end of the system, as well as bringing in a lot of that Atlantic Ocean water with the storm surge along the coast. So we will have some storm surge issues. Maybe 6-foot storm surges, let's say up to 6 foot along the Georgia coastline. So there'll be some rough surf there, some beach erosion, as well as some wind that could be tropical storm force winds, and of course some rain moving into those areas as well. So we've been talking about the rapid intensification here with this storm. Remember last Thursday? It was a tropical depression, became a tropical storm with a name during the day on Saturday. I'll point that out right here. And then it started getting stronger. It became a hurricane late Sunday. Overnight Sunday, it was a Category 1 or early this morning. And then boom, look at that rapid intensification, even explosive intensification, up to a Category 5 storm here, and that actually happened during the afternoon. So this is one of the fastest growing hurricanes on record in the Atlantic Basin with that rapid intensification that was accompanied here with that storm. Now, we are watching this storm closely because it's high interest for a lot of people. People are wanting to know what's going on. Many of you have interest in Florida. Many of you have friends in Florida. I heard from one of our friends that lives in Bradenton, Florida, which is just south of Tampa. They are evacuating. They live about 45 minutes south of Tampa. They're evacuating. It took them 5 hours to get to Tampa. Normally a 45-minute drive, it took them 5 hours to do that. They're still trying to make their way up into Georgia as they are evacuating this system. And so even though we aren't going to have direct impacts from this storm here in the metro area or in North Georgia, it is going to stay mainly down to the south. And we can thank a cold front for that, and a big area of high pressure moving in. So as that front moves in, it's going to help to keep those impacts from Milton well down to the south of us. And that cold front is then going to bring us some cooler air, and it's going to reinforce the dry air that we have in place out there right now as well. So let's take a look at the forecast track. This is the European model. This model's been pretty consistent. The GFS model has been trying to push that center of circulation up a little bit more to the north, where if that does happen, that would send a few more impacts into the Georgia coastline and into parts of South Georgia. But let me go with the European right now and show you what we're watching as we go through this timeline. Here we are tomorrow morning, just before noon. There you see the center of that circulation north of the Yucatan Peninsula, still far of the Florida Peninsula here. It moves on up to the north. This is at noon on Wednesday, still that center of circulation out in the Gulf of Mexico. And this is going to be the time frame when it may, start experiencing some wind shear, and we might see the strength of the system come down a little bit, maybe to that Cat 4. And then potentially a Cat 3 at landfall late Wednesday night and early on Thursday. Here's how it looks as it gets closer to the coastline. This is at 9 o'clock on Wednesday night, so still not really a landfall yet, but then near Tampa, we expect that landfall to take place. And then here we are Thursday at noon. So overnight, Wednesday night into early on Thursday, it'll be crossing the Florida Peninsula. By noon, the center of the storm may be moving back out over to the Atlantic. But this is the part I want you to watch right here along the Georgia coast. Can you see the arrows here? See that flow around that center of circulation, that counterclockwise flow? So what this is doing now is getting those winds coming out of the east and northeast, and that's helping to pile up some of that water along the Georgia coastline. That will give them some storm surge, as I mentioned, maybe up to 6-foot storm surge. Again, even not a direct hit of a landfall. The eye is not moving into the Georgia coast at all. It's the northern part of the system that is going to spread that wind and rain to the area and that storm surge as well. The good news is it's going to be moving pretty quickly. This is by 10 o'clock on Thursday night. You can see how everything is exiting and moving away. And so things will get better for the Georgia coast. It will get better for Florida. Also, did you notice as I was walking you through that timeline here with the forecast track, nothing was coming up toward the Atlanta area. We just have the dry air, the cool air that's going to be over us. And as we're contrasting our coverage here of talking about this disastrous major hurricane down in the Gulf of Mexico that's going to cause a lot of impacts to Florida and maybe some to South Georgia and the Georgia coastline, we do not expect to see any impacts here. We're really going to be having some nice weather with that cooler air moving in and the dry air that we're going to be experiencing here over the next few days. Here's another look. This is the moisture map that just shows the orange colors there, which is very moist. That's the very rich tropical air down in the Gulf of Mexico. Here you can see how it's going to be moving in closer to Florida, but it starts sending some of that moisture up into South Georgia and along the Georgia coast, and then it moves out. And then the purple color to the north, that's the dry air, and we're going to have that, and that's going to win out in our area thanks to that front keeping all of that moisture down to the south of us and keeping the impacts of Milton away from us as well. Here is a look at the winds in association with this system, and you can see the intense winds that we're dealing with down at the center of that storm. And there's the flow around it. See how everything is just pretty much revolving around that area of low pressure, which is the storm down in the coast here, which is Milton. Here's Tampa right there. Again, there's that center of circulation. Just watch that flow. Even on Wednesday, we're going to see some rough surf there along the Georgia coast thanks to that flow that's coming through. You see it crossing. There's the center of circulation getting back out over the Atlantic and moving away. But then just look at those winds here funneling through the Georgia coast down toward Jacksonville, enhancing that storm surge, enhancing some of the rain coming in as well, and then it's going to move out. And you'll notice here that we're not even really going to see, we might have some additional breezes here, but nothing really out of the ordinary. I don't think that would cause trees to come down or anything like that, but just maybe a little more breezy. Late Wednesday, really more into early Thursday, just maybe some breezes that are going to be coming through there. And then again, through the weekend, things are going to be settling down. So this is what we're going to get to enjoy here as we're tracking that intense weather down to the south. Look at these morning temperatures, and that's where you're really going to notice this cold front that's moving through. 61 early Tuesday morning is going to be comfortable, but look at this. We go to the upper 50s Wednesday and Thursday. Lower 50s on Friday and also Saturday morning. It is going to be a crisp, cool start to the day for Friday and Saturday. And look at the high temperatures, too. We'll be in the upper 70s on Tuesday and Wednesday. The average high for this time of year is 78, and that's where we're going to be on Wednesday. And then a little below average on Thursday and Friday, and then back up to 78 here on your Saturday. So here's the 7-day forecast showing that dry weather for the entire week. We don't expect any rain. We have a major hurricane, one state to the south of us, but all of that activity is going to stay to the south of us. We've got plenty of sunshine here, those comfortable temperatures, the really cool mornings with temperatures in the 50s and then afternoon highs in the 70s until we get into Sunday. That's when we get back up to about 81 degrees. Be sure to download our app and also make sure that you have notifications turned on so you can get notifications whenever any bad weather comes our way.